guys, welcome to another edition of the Suburban Driving with Miranda. I have not quite the Suburban vehicle this week, but I do have a 2021 Jeep Gladiator Mojave Edition. It is a manual. It is so much fun. Let's check it out. Here we are in the 2021 Jeep Gladiator Mojave Edition. So for those of you who don't know what the Gladiator is, essentially it is a Wrangler with a pickup bed. So it's quite large, it drives large, it looks large. It's about 2 meters longer than a 2-door Wrangler. And then it looks and feels the same as a Wrangler inside. It just has the truck bed out the back. This thing drives big. It looks big. I feel like I'm in something very large on the road. And truthfully, it's probably a little bit smaller than most American pickup truck lines. So like the Ranger, the smaller Sierras, the Tacomas, it's actually smaller than that. So I'm pretty sure you can hear that. So here's the thing about driving a Jeep, is that you're not signing up for some luxurious, quiet ride. And I have a 6-speed manual transmission in this as well. So the gear changes get a little bit loud, and in all honesty, I don't let the revs go past like 3,000 because this has a 3.5 liter Pentastar V6 that's good for like 200 something horsepower and about the same amount of torque, 260 I think, which for a vehicle this size isn't a whole lot. But what becomes the loudest in a car like this is the wind buffeting. Think of the shape of a Jeep Wrangler Gladiator. It's a bit of a box, so the air is just smashing up against it and has nowhere else to go. So you're hearing all of that, and it's kind of impossible to avoid it, shall we say. My son pointed it out a couple days ago. He was sitting in the back and he's like, "Mommy, like I could feel the air coming in the doors, and there's like metal here. What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's just Jeep ownership. That's kind of what you sign up for." But I will say, in this edition, so I've driven a couple of Jeep Wrangler manuals over the years, and what I disliked the most about them was how jerky their shifter was. So driving along like this, the shift knob would be doing this. So if I wanted to change gears, I'd have to catch it, or at least, stop the movement with my hand, and the palm of my hand would get pretty severely bruised, and it's obviously because I'm sensitive and I have sensitive skin. But either way, I wasn't looking forward to it. When I heard that I had a manual edition of the Gladiator Mojave, I was like, oh, should I get like a wrist guard? Should I bring something rapid? Should I do something? I don't feel like being bruised. It's so hard to type and do things. First world problems, right? But getting in this thing, they have totally corrected that, and it's really, really good now. It's a stationary shift knob. It doesn't move. It doesn't vibrate. It's sitting there beautifully calm and ready for me to hold on to when I want to change gears. Super easy, and despite the size of this vehicle, it's a very easy manual transmission to drive. I don't feel like I have too much weight, or the clutch is unruly, or the gears don't engage properly. Very, very easy to drive. That being said, the size of the engine is a little bit, it's a 3.5 V6. This is a big car. Like I said, it's heavy. Normally when you drive a manual, you downshift to get a little bit of power so that you can do something. Like I've tried to downshift when I want to pass somebody, or I want to speed up a little bit. And really all it does in the Gladiator is make a whole lot of noise. I don't really go anywhere. It doesn't make it can't go any faster. I mean, I can put it in fourth now. It's just making a whole lot of noise. It's not doing anything different, which is fine because it's not what it's meant to do. In terms of what the Mojave Edition, which is the first edition actually of this of the Gladiator to be a Mojave, what it gives you is really nice stitching on your seats. It gives you the Mojave name across the hood. You get the color-coded outside and inside with the dual color stitching and bits and pieces. And then you also get Fox racing suspension. So normally in a Wrangler, the drive is pretty unruly. It is bouncy, it's uncomfortable, it is, you feel like a bobblehead the entire time when you're driving. And that's not to say that this car doesn't have that. Not to say that, you know, there's not some disconnect with the steering wheel, not that I can't, like, you know, wrench the wheel like this and have the car still stay straight, because it does do that. But compared to other models or other Jeeps, Jeep Wranglers, it does much better. And it has a lot to do with the suspension setup. So it's not as uncomfortable as previous Jeep Wranglers that I've driven. I keep comparing it to a Wrangler because it is essentially a Wrangler, it just has a pickup bed. So I have the option to lock the rear axle should I want to, and that helps a lot with your off-roading if you want to do it in this. And you think about the size of this vehicle, would you really want to do off-roading? Is it possible? Now, sadly, I wasn't on the launch when they released this Gladiator version, but all of the reviews and videos that I've watched from colleagues that I trust say that their minds were blown by the fact that this is a much bigger version of the Jeep Wrangler, and yet it handles itself almost better than a regular Wrangler would in an off-road setting. So I would agree with them and say that don't let the size fool you, and know that it still has the capability to do what it's supposed to do as an off-road Jeep, because of all of the, you know, the 4 high, 4 low, 2 high, 2 low. You have everything down here to make this an off-roader. I have a lot of fun in this car. I have never gotten into a Jeep Wrangler or Gladiator, not that I've driven many Gladiators, and been like, I don't like this car, because I do. It's a lot of fun, and I think if you have the right lifestyle for it, and this is the kind of vehicle that you need for that lifestyle, then it's well worth the investment. Otherwise, it's something that would at least, you know, kind of make you feel a little bit more comfortable and not as, like, rocked and like jostled the entire time. I don't know. I feel like the camera's moving a lot right now.
All right, so I know you realize that it's like, looks like it's spring behind me, and the intro, there was snow. And I'm going to warn you that in my outro there's going to be snow too. But this is what a Canadian winter is like, and we don't go day to day, and some days we get like 5 centimeters of snow, and then the next day it's 5 degrees and raining. So it is what it is. And I have these cars for a week at a time, and I don't necessarily do all of my filming on the same day. Now you know. That being said, I thought it was really cool that I got to drive the Gladiator in snow. And I realized immediately, because all of the weight is in the front with that V6, and obviously the heavier front end with everything here, that the back becomes pretty squirrely unless you lock the rear axles and put it in 4H. So as soon as I did that, the whole ride changed, and it became this solid, fantastic, really winter feeling, capable truck. And even on the bumpier surfaces, so driving on a gravel road, once I engaged all of that Jeep jittery, like, bobbleheadness, gone. And I think it has a huge amount to do with the Fox suspension that this thing has. I have never been in a Jeep Wrangler, because this is what this is really, just with a bed, that felt so civilized on a bumpy road. Now, I'm just going to talk about the drive a little bit more. I know I already did that during the drive, but just let me touch on the fact that I think the Wrangler is one of the most capable, if not the most capable, off-road vehicle. And the Gladiator, despite its size, because you think, nah, there's no way this thing could do anything off-road, would be just as capable. I've not taken it rock climbing. I've not taken it up the side of a mountain, but I have taken a Wrangler up the side of a mountain. I'm lucky enough that my family has a cabin in BC, basically in the middle of the woods, on the side of a mountain, on a lake. And the only way you can get there is if you have a vehicle that has enough ground clearance and has the ability to go through mud, go through ruts, go over rocks, avoid fallen logs and trees, and kind of like scale the side of a mountain. And I've done it with a Wrangler before. And the only other two vehicles that were just as capable were a G-Wagon, which is essentially a really fancy Wrangler with a Mercedes badge on the front, and an LR4. And I felt they all did it in the same way, and the Wrangler costs about half the price of the other two. And this thing, as it is actually quite expensive. So this Mojave edition of the Gladiator comes in at about $70,000. It starts around the 53, 54 mark, I think. But with all of the extras and the suspension and, you know, the special decals and the color-coded stitching and the bits around here, and you've got even the tow hooks in the front and the back are in the same orange Mojave color. You've got Mojave stitched on the seats. So you get all these little extras. Are they worth that extra, $1,000 or more? I don't know. I think if you're going to have a Gladiator, why the hell not go all out with it, right? This might not be the most practical pickup because it doesn't have a full-size bed in the back. I don't think you can even put a queen-size bed in there. You definitely can't put 2x4s. Like, this is not a workman's truck. I'm here at my parents' farm, and, even I pulled up and my father was like, oh, it's super cool, but that's a really little bed. It's not a worker's truck, but it's still capable and you can still do stuff with it, and you get that extended back for any extra that you might need. Not everybody needs to transport a mattress every weekend, so, it's fine. Inside, this is typical Jeep Wrangler fare, and one of the things that I love the most about the Wrangler inside is how easy it would be to maintain. Like, already this thing is pretty filthy. Like, I parked in the mud here. My kid comes home from school every day. I don't know what he does in the schoolyard, but he is covered in mud head to toe, even in the winter. I don't know where he finds it. So his spot is like a disaster. But you could essentially, you can, take the doors off and just like hose it down. I've had friends who've had Wranglers and they leave the windows and the top off and like squirrels hang out in the back, and all they do is like hose it down and sweep it out, and and it keeps on going and it keeps on trucking and it keeps on it's just the same, and it still runs. And these are meant to be rough and tumble vehicles. It's rubber here. It's not soft touch. This is all stuff that you can wipe down and maintain. Yeah, these seats are nice. They're leatherette, and even here, and it's a little bit of soft touch on the top there, but it's very little. Otherwise, it's standard Jeep fare. Of course, all of this stuff comes off. The roof comes off. The windshield comes off. The doors come off. Need more coffee. And all the tools to do that are here in the center stack. But of course, I'm not taking anything off now because it's 5 degrees and it's cold and I'm a wimp. I get the nice big touch screen here with Uconnect. Of course, I can hook up my phone for Apple CarPlay. Everything works really easily. I have all the steering wheel buttons for, there's laser guided cruise control, which is pretty cool for a Wrangler. And then, of course, my volume and my change the station. I've got a nice digital gauge here. It's not, it might not be the roomiest, and right now you see I'm sitting quite close to the steering wheel. That's because I have to shift, and the clutch is quite far back, and it's quite long. So for me to be able to fully engage the clutch, I have to be fairly close to the steering wheel. But it's still easy to drive. You're not doing such huge movements in this vehicle. And even if you're off-roading, again, it would be small movements on the steering wheel. So I don't have to have a huge range of motion. And I like being close because then I can really control the wheel, which does move a lot when you drive because of the big rubber, and you're always kind of making adjustments for that. All the window controls are down here so that when the doors are off, it doesn't make sense because you wouldn't need to put the windows down anyways, but they're here. So, I think it's just always been a feature on the Wrangler that they are there. In terms of space inside, It is quite roomy. I have a good amount of visibility because I'm basically in a big square with very large windows, so I don't have to worry about not being able to see. Of course, I have the cameras, my reverse camera. I also have a front camera that I can engage, so if I am off-roading and I need to see if I'm going to clear something or if there's a big object in the way, I can engage the front camera to be able to see out the front, which I can also clean with the windshield wipers. There is a clean camera option, so if you get super muddy and you still need to see out the front, you can do so. All my HVAC is here, lots of buttons to push. They are tough, heavy duty buttons, so if you have gloves on or whatever, you're going to still be able to get to them. All the touchscreen stuff basically is available elsewhere, so you don't have to worry about not being able to get to the touchscreen if you're wearing gloves. And I believe that's it. I like this thing. The inside is comfortable and it's fun to drive. It's loud, it's a little bit obnoxious, but it's a lot of fun. So just look at this thing. I mean, no matter where I've gone or, what road I've been on or where I park, there is no denying that this thing gets attention. And, even me, when I see another Gladiator on the road, even if I'm not driving one, my head turns. This thing is big. It makes a statement. It's in your face. And then with all these orange Mojave decals and the orange lettering on the Jeep, the orange winch hooks, everything about this kind of screams look at me, but not in an obnoxious way, in like a super cool, manly, rawr, like here I come way. And I love that about the Gladiator. You feel so big and intimidating in this car until you kind of come up next to a pickup truck and you realize, oh, hold on, it's not actually that big. Like it's actually smaller than most small pickups. Like if I was to go next to a Colorado, it's going to be bigger than me. But inside this vehicle, and when you're approaching it, you're like, oh my God, you feel like you're in a tank. And I think that's exactly what Jeep wanted you to feel when you looked at the Gladiator and when you sit behind the wheel of Gladiator, and they achieved that. I love the squareness of it. I like that they've kept that. This has the bed liner as well in the back, which is extra, but I think worth it if you're actually going to use the bed. Of course, I have the tonneau cover on it now. I'm not going to remove it, which gives it a really nice complete look. And in the winter, it's great because then you don't have to shovel snow out of your truck bed. You just kind of sweep it off the top. Of course, you've got the exposed Fox suspension. If you know what you're looking for and you know what it is, then it's super cool that you can see it there in the wheel wells. And, just overall, it's got an army feel to it. It's got heavy duty. I can work, throw anything at me. It's got this attitude on the road that it means business, and it has character and presence, and I absolutely love it.
All right, guys, that's been it for me. This is the Jeep Gladiator Mojave. I hope you've enjoyed this review. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, you can hit me up at Miss Miranda L on Twitter or Instagram, or Miranda Lightstone on Facebook.com, or drop a comment below on the Suburban On Air. Check you guys next week. Thanks.